Sumo and I sort of have similar thoughts when it comes to anthologies. They can be rough, they can be tedious, they can be, very lopsidedly satisfying. You can have one good story and then the rest are awful. Or you could have all good stories except for one that really sours the whole thing. What do they say? One bad apple spoils the bunch. Luckily, with today's movie, we're doing okay. And we're talking about Scare Package, directed by Courtney Angelar, Hilary Angelar, Anthony Cousins, Emily Higgins, Aaron B. Kuntz, Chris McEnroy, Noah Segan, and Baron Vaughn. Scare Package is probably the most audacious anthology I've seen in a long time because it's not a typical, one wraparound story and then 3 or 4 mini stories to go with it. This one has 8 stories, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little more than 8, but somewhere around the neighborhood of 8 stories. There's a wraparound story, then a sort of massive wraparound story, then a whole bunch of little vignettes that are all sort of connected thanks to this video store, Rad Chad's video store to be exact. Let me get this out of the way. This is a horror comedy, so if you don't like horror comedies, you're not going to like Scare Package. However, this is a good one. This is a good one because it's smart. This was written by people who know horror, who understand horror, who love horror, and want to play with, as Joe Bob Briggs calls it, the horror tropes. Some of the stories are amazing. There's maybe 2 or 3 that are okay because they don't make sense, and in a way kind of plays into the reality of the world. Let me explain. The basic premise is we're at this video store, and the vignettes, the little shorts that we see, a part of the anthologies, are movies that a new employee is sort of taking off the shelf and just sort of like checking out. So we get essentially only bits and pieces of those movies. So for that to make sense, some of those, some of the anthology portions, the short stories, don't make sense because we're really only seeing, 10 minutes, 15 minutes out of what is potentially a whole movie. So, for example, there's one called Mr., and it was directed by actor Noah Segan. I think he wrote it as well. In it, it's sort of a fight club with werewolves kind of thing, and it has a really bizarre ending. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but it has a bizarre ending. You're like, wow, I did not expect it to go in that direction, but what does that mean? How does that all make sense? Like, wow, how does that connect? The story ends, we don't get an answer. But if you think about it this way, we just saw 10 minutes out of a movie, and in a way it's like, oh wow, that was kind of a neat taste out of what the hell that was gonna be. Another example of that is there's another story called Girls' Night Out of Body, where these girls go to this bodega. They find this lollipop there that says, not for sale. Of course, one of them steals it, and they proceed to retire to their motel room. They've rented a motel room where they plan to essentially have a pillow fight and get drunk. It's unclear what they're there for, but they're having a pillow fight, they get drunk, they decide to lick the lollipop, and then their faces, actually similar to what I'm wearing, become sugar skulls like the lollipop. And then they're also being stalked by a killer. They spot the killer, they drag him into the room, and they butcher the killer, and that's the end of that story. What the fuck was that about? We don't get an explanation, but of course, if you think about it this way, we've only seen 10 minutes out of a movie. So the good news is, the stuff that doesn't make sense, the vignettes are like, wait a minute, what? Well, what was happening in that one? The good news is, it's fine because we only saw part of a movie. So it gets away with not being 100% sensible. Another example is one, I believe it's called So Much to Do, or I Have So Much to Do. Basically, this guy gets murdered and branded with some kind of mark on his forehead, and he gets buried by this the satanic cult. Then somehow he comes out of the grave as mist. He possesses a woman. As the woman, he drives home and he starts watching TV. Then somehow the woman's ghost comes back and they have a karate fight over the TV remote. What the hell is that about? It's unclear, but again, it's only part of a movie. In that regards, I'm going to be honest, Scare Package is quite brilliant because it gets away with the stories not making 100% sense because we haven't seen the whole damn movie. So, good job, guys. That made so much sense, and it made the whole thing actually much more rewarding because it was actually quite hilarious. And comedy goes a long way nowadays, especially with an anthology like this that's sort of being very meta, addressing all the horror movie conventions and things like that. The fact that it's very funny, the fact that the characters are really, really well written, and the humor is organic and not forced, well, makes this Scare Package a very welcome arrival. I'm going to give Scare Package 5 stars, 100% 5 stars. By the way, my favorite story in the mix here was, I don't remember the title of it, but it was a summer camp, and it involves a melting guy and a crazy killer. Really funny stuff, really great practical effects. Actually, really great practical effects throughout. That's something to sort of keep an eye out for. Really great practical effects throughout here, but especially the slimy summer camp story. That was a hoot. If I should find a correct term, I would say the correct term is a hoot. Scare Package, I've got to say, I am thoroughly impressed. If you guys haven't seen it, I highly recommend Scare Package. It is a great fun time, especially now during Halloween, but honestly, anytime. It's really, really fun. It is a long one. It's almost 2 hours, but highly recommend it. I think you could just, it could be something you watch maybe half of, maybe check out 3 of the stories and then come back to. But I think it's very compelling in terms of how it builds everything together, and how there's sort of an overall storyline and then an inner storyline. It's really interesting. It's really interesting how they sort of bake it all together, and it's probably my favorite new anthology that I've seen probably since Trick or Treat. It's got that sort of Trick or Treat vibe to it too. So yeah, I'm excited for you guys to check it out if you haven't. Scare Package, I believe it's only on Shudder. It actually may have gotten a Blu-ray release. I'm not sure about that, but it's on Shudder for sure. So go check out Scare Package. I think you won't be disappointed. Well, pal, that's it. Time to close the theater down. I hope you enjoyed this review of Scare Package. Please do go check that out. I hope this video has found you happy, healthy, and well. Until we meet again, I wish you a very pleasant good day, good evening, or good night, wherever you are. Remember, I have been your friendly neighborhood Master Chaos, bringing you the movies you love or love to hate. And you have been entertained.